Leadership that believes that people are your actual masters. When you are in power, you are not in power because you are the master. The people are your masters.
I think it's also very important that we make mention of the fact that, the reason why people are loath to pay taxes, the reason why people would not want to give to a pool or a fund that we would then use as Build One South Africa to really top up some of these initiatives that we're doing is because people have lost faith.
One thing the ATM has been consistent about is holding the executive to account, is holding the president to account.
Are we responsible to the people in our neighboring countries, or is it just a case of your presidents and the big boy club where nobody calls the other leaders to account?
Spread the fire. Welcome to SMWX. Today, we are having the third edition of our election series debates. And we have two guests in studio who are going to be trying to present their case to South Africa. So we have today with us Nyaniso Jeku from ATM. Welcome. And we also have Ayanda, Allie from Build One South Africa. Welcome to you. Debate is important, it is critical, and I'm so grateful that we have political parties sending representatives to participate in debates, because it's important for you to understand what ideas does this political party have, what solutions does this political party have, what is their presentation, who are their leaders, what actually is the reason that they bring to me as a member of the public to support them, to vote for them. Many political parties are running away from debates, and I think that's something that we should not encourage. I think there's still value to this format, and there's still value to intellectual discourse, which tries to extrapolate contradictions and also identify arguments. So welcome to you both. And the first question, I'm going to put it to you, ATM, is why should South Africans vote for ATM?
Thank you very much for inviting the ATM. Firstly, the ATM was registered in 2018, contested elections for the first time in 2019, and is currently represented in Parliament. If you've noticed, throughout from 2019 up until one thing the ATM has been consistent about is holding the executive to account, is holding the president to account. And that is one of our 5 values. And why that is important is because the values of the ATM drive the character of the member of the ATM. And most importantly, and this is what concerns voters, the leadership of the ATM. The first thing, the ATM believes in peace. And peace, because with peace comes stable minds which are needed to come up with ideas to move the country forward. When people and the country at large is not at peace, then a lot happens. An angry mind cannot produce any idea to lead society. Secondly, the ATM believes in Ubuntu. Ubuntu, because after all is said and done, we're dealing with human beings, and we need to have compassion for one another. We need to believe in one another. When you see another human being, you need to see a fellow creation of God and share the little you've got. And if you preach Ubuntu and you believe in sharing the little you've got, you are the right person to ascend the gears of power in this country and access money which is needed to champion the lives of people, rescues them from poverty, ensuring that you fight crime. The other thing is transformation. We believe that the minds of politics and people at large need transformation. If we do not change the current status quo, this country will not go anywhere. The other thing, second lastly, is servant leadership, which is leadership that believes that people are your actual masters. When you are in power, you are not in power because you are the master. The people are your masters. Lastly, it is accountability. We believe as the ATM in accountable governance. We believe as the ATM that once you are in power, you need not have a one-way trip to wherever you want to go, but you keep coming to people and explain to people what you're doing. As and when people need to know what is happening with their funds, because when you're running the country, it's not from your own money that are going to build school, create jobs, and do everything. It's people's funds. Therefore, you need to keep people involved in your governance. You need to make sure that people come first. You need to rule or run the country, taking into account and bearing that people are at stake here, people are involved here, and therefore people need to know what is happening at every level of governance, national, provincial, and local. Accountability is key to keep people involved. Once you do that, there will be no strikes, there will be no protests, there will be no service, because what people want to know is to what are you doing now? How long is it going to take, and how are you doing it? Once people are kept involved, then they can account. That is the reason why people can vote for an ATM government, because it's rooted deeply, before promises of manifestos, policies, and everything, in its values, which drive the character of the leadership of the ATM.
All right, thank you. Build One South Africa, same question. Why should South Africans vote for you?
You know, in apartheid South Africa, there existed the great divide between black and white, and the lived experiences of one group differed vastly from the other. And as Build One South Africa, we're of the view that that gulf remains, albeit no longer necessarily along color lines, but definitely along the lines of one's ability to access resources to alleviate some of the socioeconomic pressures that we face as a country. So, for example, a child growing up in Soweto will experience a completely different reality to that of one growing up in Sandton. We do know that still, when we look at public schools, your quintile 1 to 3 schools are predominantly in your townships and rural areas, where your quintile 4 and 5 schools, and by extension more affluent schools, are in your suburban areas. And therefore, this great divide that exists and is now the neo-separate development is tearing South Africans more and more apart. In 30 years, we've not been able to bridge that gap in any way, shape, or form. We as Build One South Africa are saying it is time that we come together as all South Africans from all walks of life in different spheres of society, be it academia, be it the legal fraternity, be it the health sector, civil society, you name it. And we now put our hands to the plow, and we task ourselves with the responsibility of building one South Africa with one experience that benefits all those who call this beautiful country home. And that is our position. And we have taken leaders who are tried, tested, and true, people who are on the ground, who are given of themselves, their time, their energy, and other resources, and have already lifted up their hands in service. And we're saying, come and ply your trade on a provincial level, come and do it on a national level. We want politics unusual. We want a democracy based on meritocracy, where we have professionals who have the capacity to lead this country. We know that there are great plans that are out there, but as the saying goes, the base-laid plans of mice and men do often go awry. That means with the greatest ideas in the world, if you don't have the capacity, the right people in position to execute those plans, we will find ourselves in the places where we do right now in South Africa, with some interesting policies, but very little on developing those policies and implementing those policies. And so we're saying, as Build One South Africa, we want to create a job in every home. That will go a long way to making sure that there is equality and there's equity. Now, to build a job or to bring a job in every home, we need an education system that will produce children who are not only going to grow to be employable, but also employers. We need safety and security. We need healthcare sector, and we need infrastructure that will support the jobs that we speak of. And I look forward to expanding on that notion a little bit more.
Right, thank you. So the second part of this debate is an opportunity for you to respond, because South Africans have to choose between the two of you. If it's between ATM and Build, what is your response to everything you've heard from Build today, and basically your assessment of Build One South Africa in general? It doesn't have to be based on the presentation made right now.
Okay. One, my assessment of Build One South Africa is like any other political party. We've got to play a part and take a role in ensuring that we move the country forward. And I take their interest in politics and moving the country forward. What the ATM is offering, and she spoke about job, we very much care about that. And this is because the economy of the country is important. But not only jobs do you need. You need people to be self-sustained, and you need people to make sure that they function. And one of the biggest problems, if you look at the micro level of the economic space in this country, is the jobs that involve petrol attendants, restaurants, and all of that. We are saying as ATM, in order to contribute in creating jobs in this country, reserve such microeconomic space to South African citizens only. Everybody who comes from outside, any immigrant from any country, can come to South Africa and work at a restaurant, and work as a petrol attendant, and work at any other thing that is small. People who are from outside must occupy space of critical and rare skill that is not found. You do that, you create and make sure that South Africans come first, because after all, this is their country. That is why even now, voters are only South African citizens. Therefore, South Africans need to be prioritized. Once you do that, you are able to create jobs. Not only that, we want to industrialize the economy. We want to focus on local production, because what happens if we're a destination of consumption in South Africa, everything we consume comes from outside. What I'm saying is the ATM, each and every single thing that people consume in their respective spaces, their townships, their neighborhoods, it must be produced in those localities. Once you do that, you are able to create jobs, because local economy and local production in particular, those firms will establish firms, people will be employed. Those with skills can also harness their skills and be able to contribute to society. But if people spend the little they have buying from outside and money does not circulate amongst the people, that creates joblessness. And we're saying, once you start doing that, even firms, I mean, if people want to import a particular product because they see us as a destination that consumes, tell that company that part of our laws are that if you want to sell something in South Africa, produce it. If you want to sell a phone in South Africa, establish a firm so that that firm can produce these phones. You hire South Africans, exclusively South Africans. Lastly, in the issue of spaza shops, it's saddening. You can't have foreign nationals running spaza shops in this country. That is the informal economy, which has got more than 500 billion rands to contribute to the country, to this country's economy. Once spaza shops are reserved for citizens only, then locals will be able to thrive with assistance from both big business and government. They'll be able to live in South Africa. That way, we'll have joblessness fought and completely. The 32% of unemployed South Africans will be a thing of the past.
Ms. Allie, let's put that same question to you. What are your assessments of the ATM party? What are your responses to what they've said? And why do you think you're preferable to them?
I think when it comes to issues of stimulating the local economy, we're definitely in agreement. We are all in agreement that we need to industrialize. We need to have factories where you can have a label proudly Sowetan or created or manufactured in Langa or whichever township or rural area is something that we all strive for, and it's something that we all can agree is what we need to have. I do believe that my good colleague here and his team and party officials, their anger is misguided in that it is focused on those who are part of the most vulnerable in society as well. Those are those who have come to this country seeking refuge. We know that some of the people who have come from foreign countries do so that they can give birth here. I mean, Musina, for example, is inundated with mothers who are trying to give birth only because the infrastructure in their own countries has dilapidated, it has fallen apart, it is no longer functional. And when I say the anger is misdirected, the anger should be at the foot of those who are responsible for the influx of foreign nationals seeking refuge here in South Africa. That means when we start in union buildings and we say the issue of the porous borders and making it possible for people to come in, people who are legitimately seeking refuge and seeking help and assistance, but we are not processing them adequately enough because immigration officials are overworked, understaffed. Some of them are prone to being corrupt and receive bribery for people to come in. So the issue is starting right there. And then we look at our responsibility to our neighbors in SADC and the rest of the continent, and we ask ourselves, are we responsible to the people in our neighboring countries, or is it just a case of your presidents and the big boy club where nobody calls the other leaders to account? What is our president saying about the influx of foreign nationals who are seeking refuge in South Africa? Do you go to your counterpart in Zimbabwe and say, there is an issue here, there is a challenge? Why is it that hospitals are not adequately staffed? Why is it that you do not have the machinery that you need in order to make sure that we're not seeing casualties when women are just trying to give birth? Are we holding the presidents to account? Is SADC doing what it needs to do? And then you hear stories that, oh no, there are some politicians here in the governing party in South Africa who own shares and who own rights to mines in those different countries. Of course, then they're not going to call out to their peers and say to them, we need to do something for the sake of the people. So when we speak about foreigners and foreign nationals, and of course, those who commit crimes like South Africans must be brought to book. But by and large, the majority of them are coming here because of the dire state of their home countries. And their home countries are the way they are because our head of state is not doing what he needs to do to hold the political leaders to account.
Well, thank you so much. So the first question that I'm going to ask you now is going to be a policy oriented. We're going into our open part of the debate. We'll ask you questions and you present your case to South Africa. You'll have 2 minutes to try to help them understand what you're going to do. And if there's something you disagree with as the conversation goes, you can also pick up on that, or something that has already been said that you disagree with. Let's go to education. Currently, about 45% of people who start grade 1 do not make it to grade 12. There are issues with the quality of reading and maths numeracy. How will ATM fix the South African public education system?
The South African public education system is struggling because of the structural defects of the well-being of citizens of this country. A child who does not have food on the table will not be able to do well in school. A child who is in a classroom of 100 learners, a teacher of those learners is unable to spot the individual needs of that particular children. So what we need to do, this country is not building schools enough. If the money of this country were to be focused in building schools, once there are sufficient schools in South Africa, then there will not even be a need for private education. Parents take their children to private schooling because the schools are not enough. The schools are not well capacitated. The schools don't have libraries. The schools don't have computers. The grounds of the schools are not well taken care of. You go to a school, you see that as a parent, there is no decent life that is going to come out of the school. So South African government needs to prioritize its spending on upgrading the infrastructure of the schools. It starts there. Once you do that, you are going to win. Number two, the recreational facilities at the school also must also be looked at by government. The other thing, libraries must not only be in schools, in community as well. Once you create creative environments within the community, so that learning that took place in the school can be extended to recreational facilities within the community. So taking good care of the community is well linked to the education and the quality that you're going to produce. When you go to issues of syllabus and things like that, you fix the bigger part of the problem. A child who's hungry in the stomach will never be able to do well compared to a child who wakes up, eat cornflakes, be transported by their parents. Even on school public transport, you find a 65-seater carries 100 children. The same bus is involved in accidents. The dire situation of public schooling needs a complete overhaul by government of this country so that it can be prioritized and that it can produce quality education that responds to the economy of this country. Because in this country, you go up to matric, you pass your matric, you are still unable to do anything. You cannot be taken to any sector of economy and start working the day you enter there. You still require training, intensive training. Why? Because the kind of education you're given is not suitable enough to respond to the economic needs of this country. Children need to be able to walk out of a classroom and do something practical and tangible that they've learned at school, because of public education that will be responding to the needs of the community, to the needs of the country, to contribute economically and start to be active and be meaningful in society.
What is the Build One South Africa education policy?
I'm inclined to agree somewhat with my good fellow panelists here, except the part where we say we need more schools, because as we speak, there are schools that are being shut down, where the infrastructure is being, turned into maybe a community hall or is being used for residential property, or sometimes it lies in absolute decay and derelict. So the solution may not necessarily be more schools, but what do we do with the current schools that we have now? We know that the success of a school doesn't only lie in the teaching, doesn't only lie in the investment from the state, but also the parents, you're quite right, in their ability to raise funds. In affluent schools, the school governing bodies is able to even hire where there are vacancies when it comes to ground staff, or when it comes to teachers, or when you need an additional guidance counselor or whatever you need. The parents are able to club together because they have that buying power, in inverted commas, to come and make sure that their children receive the education that they desire. So we need to make sure that we give the parents back the power to choose the school that they can take their children in and invest in. Another challenge that we face in the education sector and perhaps maybe the reason why some schools lie, vacant and empty is because we're seeing traffic leaving your townships, your rural areas, going to more affluent areas where parents are thinking, this is where my child will get a better education. It puts the child in harm's way because now you're in traffic in the wee hours of the morning, in cramped minibus taxis. Number two, you are not able to focus because you were up at 4, whereas your peers in better resource communities got there, maybe 7 o'clock, and wake up at 6 o'clock to get to school. So if you give the parents the voucher that we are proposing as Bold One South Africa to say, here's your buying power. And with this voucher, you can take your child to the school that you desire, and you can then give the school this additional income, because it will come definitely from the schooling system, from the education system, but you have this buying power as a parent to invest in the school where your child will go in. It opens up for public-private partnerships as well, where you will have your more established private schools coming to invest in Soweto, for example, to say, I will have a Ayanda School of Excellence in Soweto. The parents are able to invest in the school as well because they have that buying power. We improve education. The children can go to school within a 5-kilometer radius of where they are, and they don't have to trek halfway across town to get better education. So I think that is where we are at as Bold One South Africa.
Thanks for watching SMWX. Before we get back to the episode, I just wanted to let you know the 4 ways that you can help support this channel if you want to see us growing bigger and better to keep you more entertained and informed. The first way is you can invite me to speak at your company, your school, your institution. You'll see the contact details down below. The second way is that you can become a member of this channel. Become a member, or you can give us a thanks. You'll see there's like a heart with a $sign in the ribbon below this video. Buy me and the team some coffee for this episode. The third way you can get involved is you can advertise on the channel. Now, I'd much rather the community of viewers would be advertisers on this channel than me going out to people who don't really know about SMWX and trying to explain it to them. So if you're a viewer and you have a business and you want to partner and you love this platform, let's partner on this channel. And then finally, you can buy merchandise, you can buy books. All this is in the description down below. Now let's get back to the episode.
Moving to higher education, the throughput rate at the TVET colleges is about 9%, 10%. There are many issues around the quality of TVETs, and we saw in the Fees Must Fall movement that many students were saying that they cannot access funding and there are challenges with funding, with accommodation. What is the ATM higher education policy, and how will you deal with the challenges that are being faced by many voters who are in university right now and looking at their options as to which party best serves my interests?
Firstly, the ATM believes in free education. And one of the biggest problems in the higher education relates to cost. It's money that must be paid to access education. You look at issues there, it's money for tuition, it's money for accommodation, it's money for food, it's money. So it all revolves around money. The children you'll see sleeping in toilets, at the stadium, at the gates, it's because they don't have accommodation. Accommodation requires money. Actually, when you look at the system of education and you look at the resources, we need not be talking money versus students and parents when it comes to education. Once a child has qualified, that's all a child should be able to do, is to get their bachelor's pass. Once they get that, or to get their practical education, which will take them to TVET colleges. Once they get that, they should never have to worry about funding. There should be schools ready to take them in. Government must play a key role in ensuring that the responsibility of a school is intake and not necessarily choosing between who can pay registration fee, who can pay textbooks, who can buy laptops, who can buy data, who can pay for accommodation. All of that needs to form part of education. So it goes back to one thing, funding. I mean, you don't even need NSFAS contributes a layer that on its own requires budget. There are board of directors there are institutions, there are people who are employed there. You don't need that. Government must directly fund institutions of higher learning so that those institutions of higher learning never need to worry about where money for the intake will come from. all they need to worry is the number of students who have passed, who are qualified. Once that happens, the rest should be left up for funding by government through its taxes, through its partnership with private sector, because it will be taking education serious. Equip those TVET colleges. You can't have a technical college that is supposed to be offering woodwork, but it's got no machines to be providing practical demonstration for these children. It's supposed to be offering computers. It's got a shortage of computers. How can you bring in 500 children in a school who are supposed to learn computers, but there are 2 laptops, there is no data, there is no Wi-Fi? The actual resourcing of what the school is supposed to be doing is pathetic, and that is what the government of ATM will improve. You know, you need to look at the money this country has and redirect it. Once the money of the country is focused on investment in education, you are investing in the country, because the people who are going to come out will come up with ideas to move this very same country to greater heights and to be competitive even globally, so that they can contribute in building not only this country but the entire world. And that is what the government of ATM believes in as far as education, higher education is concerned.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jeku. Going to you, Ms. Allie. What is the higher education position of Build One South Africa?
I'm inclined to want to recruit my colleague over here, because I keep saying we agree when it comes to especially fee-free higher education. That is something that we do espouse and we hold dear for those who cannot afford. It would not be a blanket fee-free education, but only for those who are unable to afford. But I think there is a layer that needs to be spoken of just before you go to tertiary, and that is post-school. And we are advocating for a year of service. And this will help to sort of bridge the gap in terms of learning, as I did mention right at the opening, that you have a 2-tiered education system, whereas one who's from a more affluent school is perhaps more work ready than the one who isn't, or perhaps more ready to go into the higher education space. But we know when you get there are things like culture shock. There's, some children who have not seen the laptop or the computer we speak of, and will be seeing it for the very first time when they get to tertiary. So we think it's so important that we have that critical layer where when children are done with their grade 12, they're able to go into this year of service, work readiness. It teaches them about professionalism. It teaches them about how to carry themselves, how to be active citizens, how to contribute to society. And so, yes, they're receiving payment for this, but they're also being polished and they're being groomed to being moral, upstanding citizens who are competent and who are able to then be funneled into areas such as your TVET colleges and not just universities. Right now, many people want to go to university because it's an aspirational thing. You don't know what you want to study. You don't even know whether or not that thing is a scarce skill. You just know that you want to go to university because that is the key to success, not knowing that you can be just as prosperous and successful if you go into your TVET colleges and you go into things that produce sometimes even more money than some of your graduates in university will ever make. And so that understanding, that sort of enculturation that brings about the South African citizen that we need will happen in that critical year of service.
Doctors are fighting to get jobs, and patients are fighting for their lives in hospitals because there are no healthcare practitioners. What is the ATM healthcare policy?
One thing, when you talk about doctors who are fighting to get jobs, it tells you one thing: the lack of seriousness and commitment from government. You cannot have overflowing hospitals with patients and on the other hand have doctors who are fighting to be employed. It tells you that there's lack of seriousness in issues of healthcare. How many new hospitals have been built by this government? Each and every single hospital you go to, it is overflowing with patients. Some sleep on the floor. You hear stories of insufficient beds, insufficient gowns, insufficient space. There was a time where we took one guy to Gauteng hospital. He had broken a leg. He gets there. He spent 3 days before he could be attended to. A person had broken a leg. Why? 1, there was no bed. 2, there was no doctor. You have instances where doctors are overworked in this country. Even when you go to private doctors, a private doctor is hovering around between their private practice and hospitals. Why? Because there are not enough doctors. Why are there not enough doctors? If doctors who are graduate struggle to be placed, it tells you that they are not serious. We are saying as the ATM, healthcare in this country must be prioritized. Build hospitals, capacitate hospitals, look at the infrastructure. I mean, you go to any public hospital, even you are visiting a sick person, you have no faith in the healthcare that is provided inside that hospital, because oftentimes a hospital that has got overgrown grass, no clear marked parkings, you got inside, the beds are scratched, there's just no life in them. That is why people choose to pay a lot of money in private healthcare, something which should not take place if once again the money of this country is spent in what matters the most. There's a lot of money, hence you hear of billions misappropriated, hence you hear of opportunities for corruption. It's because money is there, but the same money that is there, it is not properly prioritized. It does not look into providing healthcare. From clinics, by the way, some people don't even need to land up in hospitals, just like in clinics. Capacitate clinics, have clinics in rural areas, have clinics in townships, so that people can receive the care. Some people go to a hospital just to get TB medication, something which could be administered in a clinic near them. So those are the things that when you see doctors are like saying, why do you have doctors who cannot be placed while patients are so many, while doctors are having multiple jobs, trying to move between private hospital, private practice, some even in public practice? There's something wrong, and that is lack of commitment. And some of the things don't even require policy change, don't even require new policy. They need commitment. Government who's committed to put its own people first, who understand that my people as government come first, because it is their money, going back to my first point, with which I'm administering these services.
Build One South Africa. What is your healthcare proposal?
I couldn't agree more. There is a lack of focus and commitment towards improving the healthcare sector in South Africa. And how do you see that? I mean, when Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi goes to a public hospital, it is breaking news. All media are there and we cannot believe it. We're gasping because we know that the very ministers who are tasked to, with looking after public services do not utilize those services. It can be said as well for your public schools, that ministers do not take their children to public schools. In the same way, ministers, presidents, you name it, whenever they are in need of medical assistance, they more often than not will go to your private hospitals, and sometimes even outside of the country. So that just tells you. The second thing that I think is so important that we focus on is that as Build One South Africa, we've had to fight to make sure that we get generators in your hospitals, in your schools, in your police stations, and have the state ask for appeals and extensions in order to meet that deadline that was set by court to be the end of January. Why must we fight for you to have a generator and protect those who are ill, those who are in need of safety and security, those who are in need of education? Why must we fight for you to do the right thing and protect them from the adverse effects of load shedding? That also shows you that there's a lack of seriousness there. But things also like the closure of your education and TVET colleges that focus on healthcare and nursing. Where are the nursing schools? Where are the healthcare schools? Why can you not stimulate a local economy by putting a nursing college in, I don't know, Salisville, or it's somewhere where there is no education facility that is there? It just shows you that there's a lack of seriousness that as it pertains to healthcare. So we are of the view that we need to train more. There's definitely a need for more nursing, because we know when we speak of the brain drain, it's not only just those who are fairer complexion leaving the country. Even our nurses are in high demand. But when it comes to the doctors who are unemployed, and this is what pains me the most, when we need them so much, you look at what's going on in the presidency. How many ministers in the presidency do we have? Their entourage, their advisors, their spokespersons, whatever the case may be. We have one that is in charge of planning, monitoring, and evaluation. We have 3 ministers in charge of electricity. For me, you do have the funds. If you channel them in the right direction, we can hire every single doctor who's looking for employment. We can hire them today. If we didn't have such a ballooned and overwhelming amount of ministers and deputy ministers, and so many people in terms of so many commissions that have been set out, etc., it's wasteful expenditure. We need doctors on the ground. People are dying over things that should not be killing them, only because doctors are overwhelmed, overworked, underpaid, and yet many of them, some of those who are not employed, are not able to get into the system.
So let me start with you for this particular question. There have been multiple reports about Transnet, about PRASA, about Eskom, and the failures there. How will Build One South Africa change or what is the approach that Build One South Africa will have towards state-owned enterprises?
We need a democracy that is based on meritocracy. You need competent people at the helm. You need people who have work experiences leading these organizations, and not someone who was placed there because they're a friend of so-and-so, or they were good at a door-to-door, or perhaps they've earned their stripes on the ground, in the trenches, in the struggle corners of wherever they had served. It is important that we take our state-owned entities as if they were private sector entities. It pains me to see the dilapidation of the railway sector. It pains me because we know the great amount of minerals that we have as a country, how we're able to, conduct beneficiation, how we're able to change the resources or even the welfare of some of your mining communities, etc., if we were just to see those minerals reaching where they need to go and make sure that they benefit the communities from whence they come. But if we can't move them from point A to point B, it's a huge problem. If we're seeing our ports that were once the envy of every country on this continent now falling apart, unable to ship or move anything, and no longer being preferred as ports of entry into the African continent, it tells us that we're slipping. I said this in response to the State of the Nation address, that we should not be competing with other countries on the continent, because we can easily say, oh, we're better than this country or that country. But those countries have been war-torn, and those countries don't have half of the resources that we have. Equally, we can't be competing against developed countries and we say we're still better than this country that's developed country. We need to compete against ourselves and say, what can we do as South Africa? And can we honestly say that we're doing the best that we can with the amount of potential that we have? We need to be competing against our own potential. And we are of the view that when it comes to the ports, when it comes to rail, when it comes to Eskom, we are underperforming dismally. And that is not any, what can I say, guess. It is a fact. We don't have power. We have to share power. We give it a fancy name and call it load shedding, when in actual fact it's power outages. We have blackouts and we have to share electricity. If I have electricity, it means Jamie doesn't have electricity for that day. If he has electricity, I don't have electricity. And that is a sign of dysfunction. It is a sign of a red flag. It's a serious worry.
Mr. Jeku, what is the ATM approach to state-owned enterprises, but particularly Eskom, PRASA, and Transnet?
And spot on. The state-owned enterprises of this country are part of the backbone institutions of this country, because they offer services that you cannot bring competition to. And what you need to do them, you need to depoliticize them. Government or political parties who are in power need not be interested as to who is running Eskom, who is running PRASA, who is running Transnet. The focus should be how competent is the person running this organization. I heard recently the Premier of Gauteng saying they're going to build a rail line from Pretoria to East London. The same people who failed to manage the rail infrastructure that they found in place, the same people under whose watch infrastructure is dilapidating. I mean, you can't have train move from Soweto to Park Station. People are compelled to use private transport, to use taxis, to use, not that there's anything wrong, but the expenditure. If a person works at ShopRite, lives in Soweto, and this is in Joburg, the entire salary ends up in transport. So what you need to do in these state-owned enterprises, you need to make sure that there's competence involved, there's merit on which people are appointed, and you need to depoliticize them and not be interested. And the other most important thing, make sure that they get all the money they need if they are performing. You can't keep, pumping money into an institution that is not performing. Once an institution is not performing, but it comes knocking for more grants, you need to say, wait, you couldn't do what you're supposed to have done, but you're asking for more money. I'm going to give you money, but you are not going to be part of the management. Remove everybody from their board to their CEO and pump in money, appointing new people who will be competent, will ensure that these institutions are functioning. It boils down to one thing: preparedness to serve the people of this country. You cannot be happy when railway lines are not functioning. You cannot be happy when Eskom is not functioning. I'm wearing a t-shirt which I could not even earn this morning because I woke up, there was no electricity. I had gone to bed with no electricity. Those are the little things which are disturbing you the entire day. Electricity is at the center of the lives of the people of this country. You can run your business without electricity. Not every business is able to afford a generator or alternative source of energy. It's things of people who have the money, those who rely on electricity. Electricity, by the way, which was a big deal. If I go back home in Mkandule, there was electricity since last year in my village. The very same electricity I mean, I go home just for 5 days. I'll only have 1 or 2 days if I'm lucky. The electricity is not stable. There's just something wrong. The government continues to fool the people of this country. Why is there something wrong? These are the very same things which used to function in the apartheid. People used to travel by trains. Those who had electricity had consistent electricity. Why now? I mean, if you know that more property is being built, more people are moving to Gauteng, you know this, it is not happening while you're not aware. Why are you not investing in the infrastructure? Because once people start flooding to Gauteng province or any other province, you know what's going to follow. People are going to need energy. People are going to need roads. So the infrastructure of this country is not prioritized. That's why today we're sitting with load shedding. The government never planned for what is happening. How do you promise free electricity and more electricity for everybody, but not plan on how you're going to service and sustain this very same infrastructure? Roads we're driving on, most of them, the reason why there's so much traffic is because traffic flow is so much. A road which was 2 lane 10 years, 20 years ago, 30 years ago is still 2 lane today. But to where the traffic travels, there's a lot of people. New houses have been built, new property. People are moving in there. As soon as you have an influx of people going there, people can't be able to live.
I want to cut you off a little bit.
Sorry.
My apologies. I want us to go back a little bit to the Eskom question, because you guys have focused a lot on, changing the leadership structure, so to speak. But there is current policy and there are current interventions which are already underway. For example, we know that the IPP, Independent Power Production, is already underway. We know that there have been so many bid windows for IPP ownership. So that is something that is underway. We know that there's an unbundling of Eskom that is happening, where it's going to be split up from generation to transmission, you name it, and there's going to be an energy exchange. These are things that are currently underway. The government has produced its energy resource plan, and it's important for us to understand what exactly is your approach to dealing with the Eskom issue from the point of generation. Do you support, for instance, the privatization? Do you support, for instance, the prioritization of the energy mix being wind and solar? Are you going to retain coal? Are you going to move to nuclear? I think everyone has had these instances where they couldn't iron their shirt. We can't tell anyway. That's the good news. That's the good news. But we do need to ask, and I think all political parties have to sometimes face the scrutiny to say, give us some detail.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's start with you.
I think I'd love to just dovetail from the last comment that was made as well, to show just how unserious this government is about dealing with this energy crisis, is they can say proudly and applaud statements such as load shedding is not the end of the world. That comes from senior officials, to rousing applause in the audience, and then go on to qualify that and say, oh, no, I'm not saying I'm not affected by load shedding. I've had to put in a generator that cost me 18,000 Rand so my children can watch video games or whatever the case may be. Not remembering that the majority of South Africans cannot afford that generator that you now saying you've sacrificed to put into place. So that just tells you about the political will. Even the Minister for Electricity cannot commit to when we're going to see an end to load shedding. When it comes to the party itself, the governing party, they've given us deadline after deadline. I think the last one was, by December last year, you'll see an end of load shedding. We've not seen any of that. So it tells us that they don't have plans. What are the plans that we have in place? We do believe in a healthy energy mix. We do believe that it's important for us to explore nuclear, possibly in mini nuclear power plants, not full scale. We do still want to keep the infrastructure that we have at the moment as aging as it is. And we know that its time span is also limited, which is why it's important that you raise things like wind and solar. We have to harness all those different avenues in order for us to have a healthy energy mix that will be able to sustain this country. And I think it's also important that we don't forsake public-private partnerships in this space, even with our state-owned entities. I mean, for example, we look at the Gautrain, and I digress, owned by the province, but run by those who are able to give us the kind of service that we have. And that's why people are able to say, oh, no, it's for the haves, and Gautrain does this and that. If we could get competent people to run PRASA, we would have the same situation as we have with Gautrain. So it's so important that we don't forsake those kind of partnerships. And I know Transnet is looking into concessions and allowing for certain parts of the rail service there to be run by those who are able to, in terms of being in the private sector. And I think we should look into that. And it's very important that we explore those in order for us to get the service running.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Allie. Over to you, Mr. Jeku.
You mentioned unbundling of Eskom. You mentioned independent power producers. You mentioned nuclear. You mentioned coal. One, there was no need to unbundle Eskom. That is an opportunity to loot.
So are you going to re-handle it?
Well, there's not necessarily need to go back because you're spending people's money. You cannot, out of pride, now say I'm going to undo everything that has been done. I'm just saying to you right now, there was no need to unbundle Eskom. It was, all you needed to do was to capacitate Eskom. Eskom does have capacity to provide energy to this country. It's not doing so because it's been messed up with by people who are not interested in what Eskom is established to do. The IPPs, that is a recipe for disaster, an opportunity for those who are linked to the upper echelons of this country to loot and milk this country dry. There is no need to say, bring on IPPs. You try and find out who are the faces behind IPPs. You'll then start to realize that it's familiar business people who are billionaires in this country. Therefore, while you are unbundling Eskom, you are creating an opportunity to feed the business of those who have always been in the forefront as beneficiaries of business in this country. Capacitate Eskom. Let engineers do their job. Do not meddle with them. Service power stations. You know, there's nothing wrong with coal. We cannot be a country which has coal as a mineral resource, and then you say we're going to do away with coal. The entire world is looking after coal. The same coal that in this country we were told at some point we have up to 400 years of coal reserves. What are you going to do with those mines? If you are doing away with coal, you are rendering our mineral resources redundant. And watch the space. You do away with coal today, somebody from somewhere is going to come, revive this thing, and run it as a private, completely private entity with not even licenses to the state because it was done away by government. We did away with colleges. Today we have shortage of nurses, we have shortages of teachers because the technical expertise were done away in this country. You don't need to do away with coal. Yes, nuclear is good, energy mix is good, but unbundling IPPs, there's no need for that.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to ask you one final question, and that relates to a lot of the proposals you've put here. These things need funding. We just heard a budget speech at our time of recording, and one of the critical areas was the South African debt burden and the cost of servicing that debt. How will you fund your vision? Let's start with you, Ms. Allie.
I think for any economy to grow and to thrive, there's certain components that are quite important. You need the right policies in place, and those policies can speak to a myriad of things. We can speak about the township economy, we can speak about industrialization, but without the right people at the helm, those policies will fail to find expression. And without the right people at the helm, you're not able to attract investment because people don't want to invest in a country that they don't trust in terms of leadership. They don't trust that these people are ethical, that they are moral, that they are competent, and that they're able to take care of this investment and make it grow. So we believe that if we can have the right policies in place, and we do, and we need to have the right people in place, and we do, we will then be able to have the confidence not only of the citizenry who will then be giving tax to make sure that these visions come to pass, but we'll also have the confidence of the broader community, be it our stakeholders in business, be it the multinationals, etc., who will want to come and invest here in the country to help us to have a bigger pie, as the Minister of Finance keeps speaking about, so that we can fund all these programs. I think it's also very important that we make mention of the fact that, you know, the reason why people are loath to pay taxes, the reason why people would not want to give to a pool or a fund that we would then use as Build One South Africa to really top up some of these initiatives that we're doing, is because people have lost faith. They've lost confidence. They have zero hope in the ability of this government to look out for them and to sustain this country and take it to a positive trajectory. So if you put people in the helm who are tried, tested, and true, who have proven their efficacy on the ground, who know how to grow the economy because they've been entrepreneurs, because they have being transformative in the various spaces that they've operated in, we're able to attract the kind of resources that we need, we're able to create the kind of economy that we need, and we're able to fund these policies that we speak of.
Mr. Nyaniso, will you get that money?
Funding. You know, with the finance minister giving his budget speech today, one of the things that he mentions that in the last financial year, the SARS has under-collected on tax. You know why SARS is under-collecting? Not only people do not want to pay tax, unemployment has increased that tells you that people have lost jobs. If people are unemployed, they are unable, there's no tax that will come in as revenue for government. If people are unemployed, then the economy is not active, the economy is not functional. Even that business where a customer who is employed would have bought from closes down because it's got no customers. So what you need to do, make sure that you create sufficient employment. Nobody should be unemployed. Once everyone is employed, then there are taxes. Taxes over and above what we're already collecting is used to fund this country. We have even tempered into the reserves of the country, by the way. I mean, where have you ever had a situation where you take from your savings to go and buy bread? That's a situation we're faced with as a country now. Why? Because the country is heavily indebted. And you ask yourself, what did this debt do? You know, there's one thing with being indebted and you have something to show for it, that you built the country, you developed the country. This country is an infrastructure that is thriving and you're building something. But this country is not building anything, and yet it continues to borrow money for generations to come. So what the ATM is going to do is to make sure that the tax of this country is put into good use. And number one. Number two, you know, there are a lot of pegs by government. You can think it's a small thing. One, you don't need deputy ministers. Two, you don't need that ministerial handbook which says a minister can drive a car of his choice up to 1 million rands or even more. Why do we need such cars as ministers? Why do we need such cars as MECs? So you find that the focus of our money is not in the right place. Our mind is not in the right place. And once you change the mind, and that's why the ATM was speaking of transformation, change the mentality and the thinking of the person in power. Once you ascend power with a mind that says we are going to use money to improve the lives of these people, anything that is frivolous, you do away with, and you focus strictly on spending the money of this country, improving people's lives, creating jobs, supporting business, so that the economic viability of the country improves. People work, do businesses, pay tax, and you take that money, plow back into the country, and make the country function again.
So we're coming to the end of this debate, and I want to thank you so much for availing yourselves. But I'm going to ask you to make closing statements, and in that, I'm also going to put a question. Love is blind, but coalitions can see. People want to know, how are you going to deal with coalitions? So wrap up, but also speak to that, because people want to know, who are you going to marry? When you get to the altar, is there going to be a marriage or is there not going to be? What is the ATM approach to this thing, and what are the last thoughts you want people to have as they watch this?
Okay, firstly, we're urging the people of this country on the 29th of May to vote for ATM. Give ATM an opportunity to run this country and prioritize the citizens of this country and everybody who is in this country with an intention to contribute to the growth and development of this country. The ATM goes to the election with an intention to win the elections. But, I mean, we're not oblivious to the fact that practicalities are there, that if we don't win the elections, then a coalition government, as part of the rules of this country, must take place. There is no specific political party in mind to the ATM, but any party that aligns with the thinking of the ATM, any party that demonstrates interest in taking the country forward, any party that shows competent, the ATM is more than willing. The ATM is more than willing to work with each and every single South African who has an intention of developing this country for the sole benefit of the people of this country. It's been 30 years in the democracy. Any political party. You know, there's nothing wrong, by the way, with what the ANC stands for. There's everything wrong with all these crooks and corrupt officials the ANC has deployed. The ANC needs that somebody who's going to watch it. So if the ANC comes and it is ready to work with the ATM for the betterment of this country, the beautiful thing about coalition, it's not a till death do us part. Any coalition the ATM would involve itself in, once that coalition does not prove to be working for the benefit of the people of this country, the ATM will abandon that coalition. We will not be in coalition for positions of people whom we've deployed, but we'll be in coalition to take services to the people of God in this country, because the ATM, as a faith-based political party, believes that people were created by God to inhabit this country, and particularly South Africa. Those were created to inhabit South Africa Africa in order to benefit and make good of this life. If somebody wants to take charge of this country, does not want to take into account that the people who were created by God must benefit, the ATM will bow out of that coalition. We will not be in a coalition just because we want to be seen as somewhat trying to rule the country. Come the 29th of May, we're urging South Africans to vote the ATM. The ATM is ready to serve and definitely ready to govern.
Ms. Allie, love is blind, but how does that apply to coalitions?
I think the beauty of Build One South Africa is we have already started working. Our deputy leader, Nobuntu Hlazo Webster, coined a beautiful term to say we're not a government in waiting, we're a government in working, which means we have already joined hands with different organizations on the ground to make sure that we execute some of the programs that we have. And as far as water and sanitation are concerned, education, healthcare, and a number of other societal services. So we have already started collaborations, and we are already in talks in terms of what that will look like post-elections in terms of your coalitions. And we are of the view that if any political party seeks to build one South Africa that benefits all who live in it, we are willing to work with that political party. They must have the same values that we espouse: Ubuntu, dignity for the people of this country, oneness, unity, and a shared understanding of what the prosperity of this nation looks like. Then we're definitely open and willing to engage with them. It's also very important that we don't form coalitions on color lines or based on hate and separating South Africans, because our party believes that the strength of this country lies in its diversity, lies in bringing everybody together to the table so that we can have that unity that is based on justice, that is based on equity, but that is also based on making sure that we move forward with an understanding of how to heal the issues of the past and how to carve our own destiny. We do believe that the dream of Utata Nelson Mandela, where everybody lives together in harmony and in equal opportunity, can still come to pass if we work together. So voting for Build One South Africa is exactly what the name says. You're voting to come together as a people to build one South Africa that will benefit all who live in it. We are open to those conversations. We're open to many people coming together. You just
With
need
everyone.
You need to just look at with everybody who believes in what we believe in, not
Even
for the
with
sake
ATM.
even with ATM on some points that we believe in. We agreed on a lot of things. We still have to have a conversation on things, when it comes to foreign nationals, etc. But because of the ethos of Ubuntu, of believing in the somebodyness of each individual in South Africa, of treating taxpayers' money as holy grail and making sure that every single cent is accounted for, of eradicating corruption, eradicating poverty. If any political party says these are the lines that we agree on, can we move forward? We're happy to have that conversation. And so a vote for Build One South Africa is for a vote for exactly what I've just said, to build one South Africa.
Okay, thank you so much for both of you for availing yourselves. It's a very interesting conversation, and I hope that you have been better educated about what the approaches are going to be. I wonder if you have any further comments, and if you do have them, please put them in the comment section. We're trying to make sure that we have high quality discourse as we go to this massive date, 29 May 2024. And this is going to be a pivotal election. It's going to be a crucial election, and your participation is going to make the difference. So like, subscribe, comment, share. Let's continue the conversation. Yeah.